Hey everybody, this is Kevin Bass from thedietwars.com. In this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about this really cool study from 8 years ago, and it still needs to make the rounds in the online health and diet and fitness communities, but we're going to make the rounds here in this video. It's called Plant Foods and the Dietary Ecology of Neanderthals and Early Modern Humans. And it's in the Journal of Human Evolution. I was going to say the Journal of American Evolution. Yeah, we really do need to evolve. We are a bunch of Neanderthals. It's in the Journal of Human Evolution. It's by Amanda Henry, Alison Brooks, and Dolores Piperno. And I guess they're at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig and George Washington University and the Smithsonian. Cool. I'm going to focus here on one particular graph, and basically what this graph is going to be, what this table is going to be showing is the identified starch granules on the teeth, the calcified starch granules on the teeth of these basically carcasses, these skeletons that they've dug up of various different hunter-gatherers from way in the past. And here's what some of these starch granules look like. It's archaeological plant microremains recovered from dental calculi and stone tool residues. Okay, and then some of them are from Neanderthal samples, some of them are from early modern humans. Here's what the table says, though, and the identified types column is right here. It's going down, I think it's the fifth column from the right. It says identified types, and then the other thing I want to look at is this side, which is Neanderthal, and then modern human, and then of course sites of both species. These guys will be getting feisty with each other. They have both species, but then there's also a max age and a min age of the site, and so in some cases it's the max age like 41, and then the min age is 40. That means maximum of 41,000 years ago, and then minimum of 40,000 years ago, and there's maximum ages all the way up to about 100,000 years or 102,000 years ago or 130,000 years ago, right? Modern humans, 130,000 years ago. Here's the really cool thing. When they look at these calcified, these remnants of these residues on the teeth and on the tools of these humans, they find overwhelmingly a massive, massive number, ubiquitous, in fact, of grains, of triticale, of grass grains. Basically, they're taking the grass and they're taking the seeds from the grass, which is a grain. The palm date and underground storage organs say tubers. And there's just an overwhelmingly large number of these calcifications of these residues that are from triticale. And triticale is wheat. It is the ancestor of what we know as modern day wheat. And that was exploited extensively all the way up till you see in modern humans. You see in both the tools and in the calculus of the teeth, you see overwhelming amounts of triticale, of grass, and of underground storage organs. That is to say, wheat on these 100,000-year-old calculi. This is an overwhelming majority of these early modern humans from 100,000 years ago had this residue on their teeth. What does that mean? It means that they're eating grains, that we've always been eating grains. People have always been eating grains. Now there's a story in the paleo world, the paleo diet world, of the low carb world, that humans didn't start eating grains until 10,000 years ago. This isn't true. It's not true. Humans started eating grains since the beginning of when we could first start exploring grains. Since we had the idea, oh look, there's a grain there, it's easy. We can just grab and cut up a bunch of these from the ground, a bunch of these pieces of grass, they have these grains in them, then strip the grass of the grains, then mash them up and eat them, and it's really easy to do. We can get our energy that way. We don't have to mess around with like digging crap out of the ground, like chasing down this big rhinoceros. We can just like grab this stuff and chill. And whenever we could do that, we found a lot of these grains around, we were like, yes, that's what we're going to do. So ever since we had the brains to do that, we've had the brains to do that for a long time. That's what we were doing. So grain eating didn't start with agriculture. It started since the beginning of time. We have been eating grains and adapted to eating grains for hundreds of thousands of years. Hundreds, at least 100,000 years, at least 100, maybe up to 130 according to this record, but we don't have any even older sites. We don't have any older sites analyzed in this table. So the oldest sites that they have analyzed, up to 130,000 years old, they all showed grain eating. Extensive, ubiquitous grain eating, my friends. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors loved them grains. So what is agriculture? What is the Neolithic Revolution that happened 10,000 years ago when humans started living in these settled communities and started becoming farmers? What's the difference between that and what we're seeing here? The difference is very simple. Whenever you're farmers, you're staying in one place, you're planting the seeds, you're harvesting them, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas when you're a hunter-gatherer, you're like, hey, look there. There's some wheat. We're going to go chop it down and eat it, and maybe we'll go replant some of it as well. But we're going to generally live the life of a hunter-gatherer, not of a farmer. Okay? So it's a matter of intensification. So this tendency to be like, oh my God, I don't want to hunt down Bob the rhinoceros because he's going to come beat our asses because he's a rhinoceros and we're humans, and I don't want to deal with that. This tendency to say, okay, screw it, I'm going to go with the grains because this is much easier. That tendency intensified. That tendency intensified about 10,000 years ago. Now, why? It wasn't because we became weak. There's probably all sorts of other environmental. There's so many reasons that could have been the case. I'm not an expert about that, the Neolithic Revolution, but kingdoms were formed and then blah, 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 blah. I don't know what the reasons were, but it's not because we became lazy. It's just because for whatever reason, that tendency to go with the grains and to become settled farmers and to just focus on that intensified. So we became specialized in that regard, and we started eating more grains and focusing more on the grains. So the difference between the Paleolithic, the Stone Age, of hunter-gatherers, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, and our Neolithic agricultural farmer ancestors is not one of kind. It's not like black and white, two different things. It's one of intensity and amount. So we ate grains throughout human evolutionary history extensively. We loved them. We were making them into freaking bread forever. And we're making alcohol as well forever. But then at some point we started doing this more intensively. But we were already adapted to grain eating. It wasn't a radical shift. It wasn't a wildly radical shift, although to some degree it was. It needs to be emphasized. To some degree it was. And it took some time to readapt to that and to regain the things that we had lost whenever we did become malnourished when we first started transitioning to this new lifestyle, because it didn't work for us very well at the beginning. But then over time, we built back into our formerly robust selves because we adapted our food cultures to provide for us sufficiently. Now, too sufficiently in the 21st century. So, not yet in the 22nd century. I almost said 22nd century. I meant the 21st century. We're not quite there yet. So it's an intensification. It's not a matter of black and white. It's a matter of grays and a matter of intensification of a tendency that we are already adapted to. It wasn't a radical shift from 0 to 100. It was more like a shift from 50 to 100. Okay, it was a shift, but it wasn't that our hunter-gatherer ancestors didn't eat grains. We are adapted to grains as human beings. Human beings are grain-eating mammals. And that's just the facts, man. So if you like this video, like, click, subscribe, comment. The more that you comment, the more my video gets blown up into the stratosphere, which they are getting more and more likes, views, clicks, etc. And that is awesome. And I appreciate everybody who's supporting me in that respect. You can also check out my Patreon at Kevin in Bass to become one of my patrons, help out. Just help support me. Send a question every once in a while. One question. Don't send me 10 questions. It's overwhelming, and I get exhausted answering all these messages. So if you can send like one question and be pretty brief, that would be awesome. If you do want to be a higher tier patron, you can do up to $100 a month, and you can talk with me 30, 45 minutes on the phone every month. Talk to me about whatever you want to talk to me about with respect to the things that I talk about on my videos and on my Twitter, my Instagram, etc. That's also a great help, and it can get my mind running on things, because maybe you have some question about different other influencers and other things that you have thoughts and ideas about. So, yeah, and you can get me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at KevinNBass, KevinNBass. You can get me on my website as well, thedietwars.com. And if you want to check out how to support me there, you can go to dietwars.com, thedietwars.com/support-me. Check out my YouTube here at KBass Philadelphia, Kevin Bass on YouTube. Also, the Kevin Bass Show on my podcast is basically the same thing. If I have my YouTube, I just upload it to my podcast, so that you can listen to it on the go. You don't have to watch it through the YouTube app. And then vice versa. If you want to watch it through the YouTube app and see what I'm actually talking about whenever I'm talking about various different things, you can do that as well by checking out my YouTube if you're habitually a podcast listener. So thank you so much for watching/listening. And I'll see you guys for the next video. We will debunk some other stuff and talk about some other stuff indefinitely. So thanks for watching. Peace.